Please fill up your plates, although know that the food will stay out. And please get a drink and know that that'll stay open till, I think, 7:30. I would like to warmly and safely, for driving, welcome everybody that's here. This is a fabulous group. When I heard the laughter down the hall coming in, and I thought, they came out. They're intrepid Wisconsinites, and thank you all for coming. Some of us were able to enjoy Cindy Hawk's talk this morning, and you're going to hear another version of a talk later. But one of the things that stayed in my mind from that talk was our need to celebrate. Our need to celebrate one another and celebrate our successes. And this really is a night of celebration, really learning all the great things that people in our department do. And so I welcome you to the evening, the Renner Hansen event, and the celebration. I would like to start by thanking some people, of course. Thanking Armando with the camera, who really records, and I love looking back at those pictures. Thank Sue McGuire, who's probably around the corner at the table, who pulls all this together. So I want you to clap loudly for Sue. There are a few special guests, and there are even more special guests who may be on their way. A couple were flying in. But I would like to first and foremost acknowledge Mark and Alice Hansen. They are, in their kindness, in their persistence, in their commitment to this department, embodying everything that we acknowledge and stand for. And thank you for coming again. I want to acknowledge Cindy and Shaheen Haq, who have come, well, Shaheen from here, but Cindy from across the country. And you'll hear more about Cindy later. And Christine Klingman. Christine, you're here? Yes. Sorry. I should have, it was, you know, the H's and the K's. It was the flip side. I should have done it at the same time. So thank you. And I would like to also acknowledge Dr. Ding. So across the world, Dr. Ding. For those of you who haven't met her, is our liaison to the Community Health Center in Beijing that several of us have traveled back and forth. And really, I can't but acknowledge also Ken Kushner, who started the program in the early 2000s. It's been a wonderful learning experience. Okay, that being said, I want to immediately go into the program and welcome our recipient this year, the Hansen Lecturer, which, as you can see from the program, is awarded to a junior faculty member who does lots of wonderful things and is special and does teaching and thinking and moves the department ahead. And our recipient this year, to give us a talk about Exquisitely Tender, is Ronnie Han. This is not Ronnie.
I'm not Ronnie. I am
As
her.
you'll see.
I'm her introducer.
Everybody will have an introducer that knows them well.
Well, greetings, everyone. To know Ronnie Hyone is to be delighted. And in that, and in many other ways, Ronnie is cut from the same cloth as Mark Hansen, and some fine cloth that is. I could tell you about Ronnie's undergraduate degree here at UW-Madison as an out-of-state student, followed by the several interesting years she spent living life before going to Drexel University College of Medicine in Philadelphia. By the way, is anybody surprised that it was Ronnie who gave the commencement speech for her medical school? And then ending up back here in Madison for her family medicine residency in our program beginning in 2008, including serving as chief resident and receiving a teaching award from her peers. I could tell you about that, but I won't. Or I could tell you about the academic fellowship that she did in our department after she completed residency, followed by joining our faculty in 2012, and about her maintaining a continuity practice at Northeast for all of her time in the department. But I won't talk about that either. Nor will I talk about her leadership in maternity care and in reproductive health and in the care of transgender individuals, or the awards she has received for clinical excellence from UW Health, or being honored this year as the Scheibel Lloyd Faculty Teacher of the Year, selected by our program's residents, or her many national presentations, including being invited to teach about transgender health at other medical schools around the country, as well as by the Family-Centered Maternity Care Group and the American Academy of Family Physicians at their national conference, and serving as co-chair of the LGBT Health Collaborative of the Society of Teachers of Family Medicine. But nope, I'm not here to talk about that either. Oh yeah, and she's written a bunch of papers too, just so you know. What I am here to tell you is that, like Mark Hansen, Ronnie is possessed of a crisp intellect, an eclectic mind, a rather wacky sense of humor, and a huge heart that in her case has particularly embraced many people who have painfully wondered if they were embraceable. And that is a profound gift. So, prepare to be delighted. It is my great honor to introduce the 2019 Hansen Lecturer, Dr. Ronnie Hayone. Before you even start, here you go. You get this lovely. There you go.
Well, thank you so much, Bill, for that incredibly tender introduction, and to the executive team of our Department of Family Medicine and Community Health for the honor of this year's Hansen Lectureship. I know what you're thinking. You are looking at me, and like many before you, you're wondering, Hayone, how'd you get to be so cool? Don't worry, I get asked this on the regular, so I'm prepared. The answer is, coolness runs strong in my bloodline. This is my maternal grandfather, Louis Kern. And at first glance, this looks moderately cool. I mean, my grandfather's on stage and performing. But wait, there's more coolness. He is playing the spoons. This man would play spoons anywhere, and I do mean anywhere, including at my bat mitzvah, in front of all my 12 and 13-year-old peers. So cool. This man contributing half the genetic makeup of my cool mom, who also happens to be here with us tonight. So here she is, pregnant with my brother, rocking curlers and tape on her bangs. And at first, I wasn't sure whether coolness crossed the placenta, but I think it's pretty clear from these pictures of my brother that it does. Sorry, folks, he's taken. It's overwhelming, right, this coolness? So this is my dad. I mean, look at those diplomas. Cool, right? I mean, this here, relativization in Hebrew, a transformational approach, that's the title of his dissertation. Like, if that's not cool, I don't know what is. He was always, always the picture of suave, academic sophistication. I don't know if this makes sense to Bill now, knowing the comment that he made about my goofy sense of humor. This may be from whence it came. So Lador Vador is a phrase in Hebrew which means from generation to generation. Here we have an apparatus for simple distillation, and I, like a highly purified distillate, arrived in the family to seal our place in the Coolness Hall of Fame. I know, it was an awkward year. Okay, our family is obviously a nerd herd, but there is legitimately one cool member of my family. This is my maternal great-grandmother, Bertha. She immigrated from Russia to the US as a young person. She learned the language, she raised a family, she left an abusive husband when things like that simply were not done, and she did some nice oil paintings on the side. Here she is looking like someone you don't want to mess with in front of a plant that you also probably don't want to mess with. So I will say this, what our family lacks in chill, we more than make up for in silliness and a love of language. Some of my fondest memories from childhood are the four of us goofing around and making puns and jokes about language and laughing until tears streamed down our faces. Here's my dad doing what he did exceedingly well, holding court and telling stories. We as children would beg him over and over and over to tell us his stories of being in the Israeli army and stories of his stumbling and fumbling over the English language and American customs when he first came to study here. The Hayons are readers, we are lovers of language, we are parsers of text. You could say that my love language is language, so it should be no surprise that I fell in love with my wife Kathleen while writing pithy and adorable emails to one another. She swooned when I made a joke using ibid, and I knew, right? And I just knew that this was my other half. She likes to tell people that I had her at ibid, which I think encapsulates our relationship perfectly. So from an early age, language was something that grabbed me. It intrigued me, and it gave me joy. I was also a very sensitive child, taking to heart and feeling wounded by every critique, social slight, or playground insult. And as a child, and let's be honest, as a current real-life adult, I was completely unable to watch any nature shows on TV. I was always rooting for the prey, and inevitably ended up in tears when the prey was, well, prey. I always figured that I would be some sort of teacher, like my parents were, and that I would use language to encourage and tend to other gentle souls like me. I started my college career here at the UW as an English major, and I dove headfirst into 18th century literature, poetry, the writings of Chicano and Chicana writers, and feminist theory. And it was during these studies that I learned about the concept of the palimpsest. A palimpsest is a manuscript that's written on top of an earlier text that has been effaced or erased. So one night, in a caffeine-fueled panic, I decided that I needed to do something that actually made a difference in the world. And I thought, maybe med school? So immediately I signed up for basic chemistry, and almost as immediately, I was promptly weeded out by the intensely cutthroat world of pre-meds. These are not my people, I thought. I thought maybe I'll teach biology or be a health educator of some kind. So after graduation, I did what any self-respecting 22-year-old queer person with a semi-useless degree in zoology and women's studies would do. I moved to California. And there I ate a lot of really good burritos and tried to figure out what I was going to do with my life. Somewhat serendipitously, I got myself a job as a medical assistant and a health educator at Planned Parenthood. And that early introduction to healthcare was when I started to think about how the palimpsest functions in the medical setting, noticing how patients use language and how we understand or misinterpret their intended meanings. The palimpsest is actually something that I think about a lot when I'm interacting with patients. So what's on the surface and what's underneath? How does the past show through into the present? In a way, a scar is a palimpsest, the story of an injury written on top of the skin. And if someone decides to cover that scar with a tattoo, another palimpsest. And in my work providing gender-affirming care, I often feel that rather than writing a new manuscript over the old one, we're actually doing the opposite. We're scraping away the layers of shame or fear or forced conformity to reveal the original true text that has been underneath all along. So lately I've been thinking, how do we as clinicians use language to illuminate or obscure? How do we process and explain the pain, the joy, the fear, and the illness that we are witness to in our clinical practice? And how do we document that in our clinical notes? To be honest, this has come into even sharper relief for me as our notes have become open to the patients we care for. And I have to reconsider some of the words that have become normal and comfortable to me as a physician. So often I find that medical documentation makes it sound as if the patient is on trial, that they've been accused of something, and we, the all-knowing physicians, are ferreting out the truth. They may deny a certain symptom, but they are clearly an unreliable witness, a poor historian. But there's unexpected beauty in this language too. So take the word appreciate. When we use the word appreciate, when auscultating a heart murmur, for example, it simply means that we heard it. But we don't hear it, we appreciate it. And appreciate can mean being grateful for something. Are we grateful when we hear a murmur? A sound that tells us a story about how blood is flowing in and out of someone's heart? Perhaps appreciating a clinical finding means that we honor what we see in our patients and hear in their chests. So, exquisitely tender. This is a term that we use to describe severe pain that is elicited with even the lightest touch. And guarding, this describes the voluntary or involuntary measures that patients take to protect their tender spots, that we insist on prodding and exploring. But exquisite can also mean extremely beautiful and delicate. And I have noticed my own tenderness growing and clamoring to be acknowledged in new and acute ways. The grief of losing my father is a tender spot that I carry with me always, and the tenderness is gonna come out. Becoming a parent has opened an entirely new world of tenderness that I had no idea existed. I often describe being a parent as growing a second heart, which is walking around the world outside the safety of your ribcage and making really questionable decisions. And this is truly an exquisite tenderness. It's one that pulls at my heart in beautifully excruciating ways. And raising her in a world that can feel increasingly chaotic and mean is also a great tenderness. The tenderness of giving her roots, but also wings. The wings are the hard part, by the way. And letting down my guard and sharing my tender spots have allowed me to deepen my relationships with family and loved ones and patients. Oftentimes in medical training, we're encouraged to toughen up and keep an emotional distance between us and our patients. And in closing, I want to tell you a story about one of my most beloved patients. It's a story of tenderness and of palimpsest. So around this time last year, my dear patient Glenn passed away. And his 94 years were so well lived, filled with love from a wife who preceded him in death and many children who loved him deeply. I always knew that he had arrived for his appointment well before I got to see him, because whenever he came to clinic, I could hear every single employee gleefully greeting him as he made his way down the hall. This man was an embodiment of love and light. And I am not lying when I tell you that we would hold hands through almost the entire clinic visit. I made a few home visits here and there over the years so that he wouldn't have to go out in the cold. And he would call these visits happy hour and insisted on serving me cheese and gluten-free crackers. He would seem genuinely heartbroken when I declined the beer he had chilled in the fridge especially for me. He was crafty and loved making things on his scroll saw. One year he made me this Christmas tree ornament, and though I am a mostly atheistic cultural Jew, it is one of my most special objects. So last year I knew that he was nearing the end of his life, so I went to go see him in the nursing home where he was staying. And he was resting, and he looked so tiny in his nest of blankets. And he stirred briefly when I was chatting with his daughter. And she turned to him and yelled quite loudly, "Dad, you're in for a treat. Someone special is here." And I went to his bedside. And it took him a minute to figure out who I was. But when he did, his face cracked into this huge smile. And he took my hand, just like always. And he patted my face and the back of my head, just like my Dad used to do when he was alive. And here it is, the palimpsest of grief, which shows itself in the most interesting and unexpected ways. And he told me that he loved me, and I told him that I loved him too, because I do. And he died the next day. I really wanted to go to his funeral, but in a less than subtle sign from the universe, I found myself scheduled to work on labor and delivery that day. Man, this job of ours is something special, isn't it? It's strange and beautiful and glorious and painful and humbling and so very tender. So I'm going to go ahead and keep being tender. Forget this toughening up nonsense. Tenderness is not a weakness. It's what makes this profession and this life so exquisite. Thank you.
It's both hard and wonderful to go on after a gift like that. And it's a gift to all of us for being here and braving the snow. And we have more to go. So we have the AAFP Distinguished and Meritorious Service to family medicine. Lou Sanner, would you stand up and come on up here? Lou, I'm not Alan Schwartzstein. I have no award to give you, but I do have words for you from the AAFP, and I will say them to your peers. So this is an award that's a highly coveted honorific award that isn't even given out every year. Lou got this, as most of you know, for his residency program solutions work and as chair of the Graduate Medical Education Initiative and his legislative work. Really, he got it because he's a national expert in GME funding, especially for primary care. And even more so, he really got it because he talks nationally all the time with this wonderful mix, described in the letter, I couldn't have said it better, of precision and humor. And for those of us who've had the pleasure of knowing and working with Lou, that's exactly what he does. He's passionate about what he does. He does it well, with excellence, and carries forward. So since Alan couldn't be here because of the weather, I got to say those words, which is lovely. And do you want to say anything to your peers? I don't even have a plaque.
Yes, I'm plackless. Thanks. Thank you, AAFP. It's so hard to go out after Ronnie. It's just not going to happen. Some thank yous. My Northeast crew, BAM. Residency staff, I don't even know if they're here, but they are so super cool, yes. Coolest people around. To Mark Hansen for hiring me. If you're looking for who to blame, right over there. Mark is one of my favorite people in the world, and he's still in the world, so I think that alone is worth. So thanks. I'm not all about the money, but I've really been. It was actually John Fry who suggested I do this RPS gig, and it was super fun because I get to do what I do best, which is tell other people what they should do and not have to do it myself. It's like, man, we should all get this job. So good. It's been great, and good to have the support of my peeps from back here, and it is part of the mission. It's a whole mission thing we're doing, right? Like you make more family docs, make the world healthier. That's what we're doing. So keep doing that. All right, guys. Thank you.
I have to pull this down now. So I have another unique award to acknowledge today, and that is the Inaugural Rich Roberts MD, JD, Clinical Excellence Award. Now, Rich is going to introduce the first recipient to this award, but I'm just going to take a few moments to introduce and remind those people who may not know about Rich. So Rich has been past president of World Organization of Family Doctors, past president of the American Academy of Family Physicians, and the Wisconsin Medical Society, has over, I think it was 200 publications, 800 talks all over the world. He has been, as many of us know and represent here, passionate about the role of family physicians and the importance of primary care for the health and well-being of populations. And that has taken him to 70 countries where he has talked about family physicians and primary care. So needless to say, there's a very thick CV, which I am not going to mention, but I couldn't pass up Rich's award, which was established by our executive, and it's clinical excellence because Rich says, basically, that's what it's all about. So go ahead, Rich, and then you can introduce your first recipient.
Well, thanks, Val. You know, it's been said that the renown of a speaker is inversely proportional to the length of the introduction, so I'm going to make this brief for our award winner because I'm hoping and assuming most of you know him well. Dave Ringdahl spent his formative years in Iowa and then his residency in Columbia with the University of Missouri before coming to his senses and moving north to DeForest about 31 years ago. The last 20 of those have been with the university. And I don't know if Dave remembers this, the first time he and I met, he had just started into practice in DeForest, and I went over to pay a courtesy call. And at the time, we had a clinic out in DeForest that Jim Warwick and Pat McBride and others would go to, and we'd sort of cover for them at times. And I came away from that meeting thinking, wow, this community is really fortunate. Dave rose quickly through the leadership ranks at Physicians Plus Medical Group and then now with UW Health, where he's led a great number of primary care initiatives. He's also been a lead preceptor for medical students in their clinical longitudinal experience. But most important of all, he is what I would call a doctor's doctor. Now, by that, I do not mean that other doctors respect him greatly and patients adore him, though those two things are true about him. It's that, I mean literally, he has a number of physicians where he is their personal physician. And you know, what strikes me about that, given the surfeit of physicians we have in this community, and the fact that people have to drive all the way out to DeForest to see him. Now, that's not the end of the earth, though you can see it from there. Is that it really, to me, indicates how loyal his patients are to him because he is so loyal to them. I can think of no better inaugural recipient of this award than Dave Ringdahl.
Right here.
Oh, okay. That's not a plaque.
It's a
Silver thing. It's a lovely parting gift.
Thank you. You want me to say anything? Well, I'd love to. So it is a great honor to be the first recipient of the award tonight. You know, I have always been enamored with Dr. Roberts' involvement in advancing our cause in family medicine, both locally, statewide, nationally, and internationally. I think the greatest impact he's probably had, though, is on his local community and the patients that he's cared for. And that is where the greatest admiration probably comes from and the memories come from that he'll treasure most in the days and years ahead. You know, anytime you get an award like this, it's not something certainly that I achieve on my own. It's something that reflects a lot of hard work from the staff and the colleagues I have out in DeForest. And I've been blessed to have great people around me for 31 years, from the receptionists who keep me on task with my schedule and try to keep me on time, to the lab techs and the x-ray techs who tell me how to order things appropriately when I mess it up, to the MAs and the RNs who give selflessly of their time for the patients and to help everything run more smoothly, to my colleagues who I feel like I can ask anything of and they'll help me along. So I feel very fortunate to have landed in DeForest
And it's been a wonderful place to spend 31 years, and I hope to spend the rest of my time in clinical practice there as well. Thank you very much.
Now we're going to move on to a part of the program that acknowledges what has been mentioned previously, which is we do our work with and part of teams. We couldn't do the work we do with patients without those people that support us every day, all day. So each of the recipients have, and they'll come with the person that nominated them. So first of all, in the Robert Drakensberg Staff Excellence Award, Julia?
I'll keep this short and sweet for both our sakes. Sue McGuire has been with the department for over 20 years, and I think her impact is pretty well known. She connects and collaborates with almost every area in the department, if not every area. So I'm happy to present her for this award for the long-term devotion and support to the department.
Thank you. Thank you. Next person, and Jenny. And Ildi. Good.
Hello, I am very excited to present to Jenny White her Staff Excellence Award. We were told to keep our comments to 1 to 2 sentences. Luckily for all of us, my 7th grade English teacher deemed me the queen of run-on sentences, which gives me a few extra words. Jenny knows this because she often has to correct my writing, make things look pretty. Jenny is our residency program coordinator, and that sounds like an important title, and it is, but it really it should be more like residency goddess, making sure that everything runs properly, making sure we keep up accreditation. Jenny works so hard, together with our amazing staff, many of whom are back there, to keep our program afloat, to make sure that we are submitting all the gazillions of reports that we need to submit. I will get various emails from accrediting bodies saying, hey, this is due, and Jenny quickly tells me, yep, I did it last week. She is creative, she is funny, she keeps our staff going through really, really busy times because we sure have those throughout the year. And she brings with her every day just a joy and an enthusiasm that truly makes working in our part of the hallway a fantastic place to be. So come visit us sometime if you haven't met her in person and have only seen her name on zillions of emails. Now you know who she is, and this is so well deserved. Congratulations, Jenny.
Kate Porter. Yeah. And Skylar.
Hi. I read the email as 1 to 2 minutes, not 1 to 2 sentences, but mine's brief. I don't really talk very much. So I'm pleased to introduce Skylar Witkowski for the Robert Drakensberg Staff Excellence Award. Skylar's worked as a medical assistant with the UW-Yahara Clinic for over 5 years, and I've been lucky enough to work closely with her for the last 3 years, and I could not do my job without her. As you're all likely aware, as far as clinicians and other staff members, most UW clinics have experienced a very long staff shortage, In the face of this, Skyla comes to work every day with a big smile on her face. She's the epitome of a team player, and more so, a team leader. Skyla has become the go-to troubleshooting resource for not only other medical assistants at our clinic, but also the patient scheduling representatives, registered nurses, and even our healthcare providers. When somebody doesn't know the answer, we ask Skyla. Despite the lack of official role or recognized title, she has excelled in this unpaid leadership role, and I couldn't be more proud to say that I work with her every day. Her current official leadership roles at our clinic include OB champion, Wisconsin Immunization Registry inventory leader, first breath champion, and co-chair of our local QI group, who also was just awarded the James E. Davis Quality Improvement Award this year. So Skyla has gone above and beyond the demands of her role since starting at UW Health, and even more so in this time of staff shortage. She does all of this in addition to the many demands of her position. She does these things because she wants our clinic to be great and for the benefit of our patients. So thank you, Skyla, for all you do. Oh, is there an award? Here you go, Skyla.
Okay, we now move on to the research awards. And I would like Dave Robigo to come up, and he's going to give you the overview of the awards we have in that area tonight.
Thanks, Val. I'll invite the two recipients of the Scheckler Award to come up in just a second. But I noticed that we're a little bit early. I don't typically speak in run-on sentences. I tend to talk in paragraphs, hopefully good ones. And so I'd like to share just a couple of minutes, essentially in thanks. First, I'd like to thank Ronnie for one of the best talks I have ever heard. Nerds do rule, let's just face it. And so I'll share a couple of, just a tender bit on my own. Many of you know that my wife and I are making a lateral move to Pennsylvania in the next couple of months. I have been over the 23 years here in the department to many events like this one. I have loved every one of them. Sometimes I have been an audience member, sometimes I have been an award recipient, and sometimes, like tonight, I have been a presenter. They have all been great. I worked with a lot of junior faculty, and among the many things that we talk about is go to stuff. Just go to stuff. You don't know who you'll meet, you don't know who you'll see, and you don't know what impact they'll have. And two things stand out. Two meetings stand out. The first, 23 years ago, was at a picnic that was attended by the recipient of an honorary award tonight, Dr. Cindy Hawk. 23 years ago. We met, we talked, and she said, you know, you really should apply to this program. You really should. And I said, fine, but I'm Midwest modest, and I wasn't really sure that it was for me. Really good program in every way. And we met another time or two, and each time she said that, and eventually I just said, okay, I'll apply. And that was 23 years ago. And thank you very, very much. The second is a couple of years later at this event, at awards event. And I was the recipient of the Resident Research Award. And the faculty member receiving the award next to me was Mike Fleming. And he said, as we were receiving awards, you know, if you want to do this anymore, come talk to me. And I said, okay, I will. And 21 years later, I'm still doing it, and still loving it, and still appreciating do the clinic, do the teaching, and do the research that is a part of academic medicine that we are all a part of. Along the way, thanks to Lou Sanner, who hired me, Jim Davis, and John Fry, and Val Gilchrist, who kept on essentially promoting me. and it has been a wonderful 23 years. So thank you very much. But these are about the Scheckler Awards themselves. Bill Scheckler, you may know, was the interim chair here, and a storied clinician and researcher. He was the founder of the Primary Care Research Fellowship, which continues in its 25-plus year history. I have been the director of that. Bruce Barrett will soon take that over. And, of course, he was the originator of the Scheckler Awards. The thought was that we should honor, as we honor the expertise in all areas that we do, the research endeavor as well. And so I have 2 awards to give today. I'm going to actually flip the order a little bit and ask Ellen Goldstein to come up first. Ellen? Ellen is a junior member of our team here, assistant scientist, and a graduate of our Primary Care Research Fellowship. She is honored tonight for the paper, Mediational Pathways of Meditation and Exercise on Mental Health and Perceived Stress, a randomized controlled trial. Yes, it is a mouthful. This paper comes out of Bruce Barrett's larger study on meditation and exercise. And the finding of this paper is fantastic, perhaps not surprising, but fantastic. And that is that meditation and exercise are good for us. No big surprise, but that meditation probably mediates that interaction. And I think everything that we can do to explore this area these days is just wonderful. Ellen, congratulations on this award. Do you have it? So you hold it and I hold it and we look at the camera. Thank you. Our second recipient is Andy Kwanbeck. Andy is the recipient of the Faculty Scheckler Award, and he comes to us out of an industrial engineering background, and work that tries to answer the question and addresses how we do the things that we do and how to make those things better and more impactful. The title of this paper is even more complicated than the first, which is why we're doing this one second. His is a randomized matched pairs study of feasibility, acceptability, and effectiveness of systems consultation, a novel implementation strategy for adopting clinical guidelines for opioid prescribing in primary care. Now, a lot of author guidelines have actual word count or character count limitations to the title. Not so in this case.
Never heard it said out loud before.
Yeah. But it's a good one, and it contains the nugget of what's going on here. It turns out that there are opioid guidelines, but they are not always followed. Present company accepted, of course. And Andrew's thought is that maybe we can take one or more strategic notions in clinic and try to set up a way to make the guidelines better adhered to and find out if doing that will improve opioid guideline management and acceptance. And the answer in this study is that yes, by doing several things, we can do that. And the prescribing patterns do better adhere to guidelines. So, fantastic. Thank you.
So yet again, we acknowledge the reality of how we live and work in our clinical life, because this one is the Team Award, Quality Improvement, and it's going to be presented by Kirsten Reinflesch, and she can tell you more about it and the recipients.
I'm very happy to present this year's James E. Davis Award for Quality Improvement to the team at Yahara Family Medicine. So these folks took a look at the experience that their patients were having and trying to schedule appointments and saw an opportunity for improvement. They brought together a cross-functional team from across their clinic to look at the problem in detail. And they came away with a really simple tool that allowed their schedulers to take certain patient complaints and get those patients scheduled right away for appointments without having to take time to go through nurse triage. And what that did is it improved patient satisfaction with access for appointments. It reduced overburden of work for their RN team, and it also inspired change across the system in general. So thanks in no small part to their pioneering work, a similar tool is being developed and vetted and getting ready for further implementation across primary care. So that's amazing work, and thank you so much. Congratulations.
So the last award, before we go on to the Renner, Wisconsin idea, is the Chairs Award. I think everybody in this room knows that I will be stepping down as chair from this department, and it is bittersweet. I keep having to defend myself. I am not retiring. I am just stepping away from the chair. And somebody else is going to carry the administrative banner or load, depending on how you look at it. But I wanted to take this time to acknowledge the people that have been with me. And really, I could not have done anything without these individuals. So Sandy Kamnitz and Bill Schwab, would you come on up to get the Chairs Award? And I have one also for Linda Haskins, whose plane doesn't get in, at least it was scheduled to get in shortly after 9. It may be much later. So we save another treat till the end of the evening. It will be delightful, I'm sure. And I would like to acknowledge as far as I can see, this is the first time the Renner Award has gone to somebody who's not living in Wisconsin right now. So that has two messages. One is, once you're from Wisconsin, you're always from Wisconsin, and you carry it with you. The other thing is, Cindy, we have a chair position coming open. You could definitely. I hope there's nobody from Irvine here. So Cindy, as many of you know, has done incredible things. And again, following Rich Roberts, or with Rich Roberts, they both practiced in Belleville, around the world, Pakistan, Uganda, Ethiopia. To all of those places, she has carried her passion for what primary care can do and should do, especially for the people who need it most. She spoke this morning about advocacy. She was part of our department for many years, and we are blessed by that. And now she is chair at UC Irvine. But she's come back in the snow to talk to us, and going to close this with the Renner address.
So thank you, Val. And I think I have a presentation somewhere if someone can give me a hand bringing that up. But let me just say that what a thrill to be back home in Wisconsin. It's really lovely, and I feel like I'm kind of cheating on this award. So, at any rate, it's cold outside, and I've kind of lost my tolerance for the cold, and I'm like, but it's so warm in here. And that's how I felt since I came back, is the warmth and the kindness and the tenderness and the sweetness of what's here in UW Family Medicine. And so it's such an honor and really a very special privilege to be back to talk about the Wisconsin idea. So, give you a second, just a second. I'll also just mention that after my talk this morning, it turns out John Fry was on the line, and he was watching my talk, and I immediately got some feedback from Dr. Fry. And he told me I seem to be confusing us versus we, and I'm referring to Wisconsin as we, which I should be referring to as them. So I seem to have a bit of an identity crisis, right? Because I still feel that Wisconsin is in my blood. I'm raised up. This is my family, and I'm so grateful and so happy to be back again. So again, thank you for this very special honor. So tonight, the slides will come, but I'm going to be talking a little bit about what is the Wisconsin idea and how is it that people and ideas actually shape us and enable us to shape the world around us. I'm going to share a few examples of people that have shaped me and have informed my work in Wisconsin and around the world. And I'm going to reflect with you on how we can continue to amplify this marvelous idea that we're all a part of this story. And I couldn't be more honored that Dr. Hansen and Alice are here tonight because they're such an important part of this story. So we'll talk about these basic things. And so let's just take a moment to review. Let's see, how do we advance here? I'm not, okay. Somehow we're not advancing the slides. Okay, I can do it this way. The remote does not seem to be working. Oh, here we go. The Wisconsin idea. Let me go back. Okay. The roots of the Wisconsin idea comes from more than 100 years ago, in which the UW president, Charles Van Hise, said, "I will never be content until the influence of the university reaches each and every family of the state." The university is intended to generate knowledge. But it doesn't stop there, because knowledge in and of itself is not necessarily changing the lives of people. And so, indeed, Adlai Stevenson said, the knowledge generated by this university should improve the health, should improve the lives, the environment, agriculture for everyone in the state. It's more than a simple belief. It's that we use knowledge to improve people's lives and make a difference in the world. When I came, I was told that the boundaries of the university are the boundaries of the state. And so indeed, you are to apply the knowledge and information that you learn here statewide. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the fact that this idea has indeed been amplified. It's been extended, actually, beyond the state of Wisconsin. When I first came, I shared my interest in working abroad, working internationally, and I was told, well, this is a state school, And actually, the boundaries of the university are the boundaries of the state. So if you're planning to work outside the state, well, that's on your free time, because that's not real work. It doesn't really count here because we're a state school. And I puzzled about that, but I accepted that and said, okay, just hire me to work part-time, and I'll work outside the state on my free time, on my holiday. But over time, over many years, the idea of Wisconsin has gone beyond the boundaries of the state, throughout the country, and indeed throughout the world. And Dr. Barney Easterday, the founding dean of the School of Veterinary Medicine, when we worked together in global health, he coined the phrase, a world-class university is engaged with the world. And indeed, the idea of Wisconsin doesn't stop at our state boundaries. It is worldwide. We can take the knowledge that's generated here and actually apply it and amplify it to benefit the entire world. Think of a drop of water, the rippling influence of that drop, and how one small drop, one conversation, one idea can begin to spread outward, can begin to ripple, can begin to resonate, can begin to influence many others beyond that immediate conversation. We heard it in Ronnie's talk. We heard it in Dr. Robigo. Dr. Deasy was talking about our first meeting together and how that simple recognition of the other, the building of a relationship, the acknowledgement that the other has something of value begins to resonate, begins to amplify, and indeed can have a very profound and important impact. I never had the opportunity to meet Dr. Renner, but I heard some stories about him. There's some wild stories about Dr. Renner, but we all owe him a debt of gratitude, because the stories I heard is he came here and he really rocked some boats, and he worked together with Dr. Mark Hansen, our founder, to establish the program in family medicine. And we owe them a debt of gratitude for the courage, the creativity, the vision, the ability to create something that would benefit patients, families, and communities that we could all learn from. And of course, those of us who were so fortunate to know Doctors Jean and Linda Farley realized that they thought about beyond the patient in front of you. What about the denominator, Jean would say? What about the patients that don't come into the clinic? What about them? How can we make sure that the work of family physicians improves the health of the entire community, the disadvantaged, the vulnerable? How do we make a difference for everyone whose lives we might be able to influence and touch? And they, who had marched with Dr. Martin Luther King, were so infused with this sense of social justice, of all forms of inequality. Injustice in healthcare is the most shocking and inhumane. Until their dying day, Doctors Jean and Linda Farley were fighters for social justice and for universal access to health care. They inspired each and every one of us to continue to go forth as advocates. And indeed, it was the example of Dr. Farley, Dr. Hansen, and others who had confidence in me, Dr. Jim Davis, who I see, confidence in me that I could actually go to Uganda and actually have a role in improving child survival at a time when 1 out of 3 children died before the age of 5 years old. And I was a resident in family medicine, and I went to Mark Hansen and said, do you think I could do an elective in pediatrics in Uganda? And Mark was like, I think that's kind of a crazy idea, but I have a feeling that maybe it would be good for you. I think you could do that. And so with the confidence of Dr. Hansen and Jim Davis and so many others, so many that I can't acknowledge here, but that taught me and gave me the skills, I was able to go to Uganda and actually work on programs to improve child survival, and then recruit additional residents beyond me who were able to follow in my footsteps. And sure enough, within 2 years, the program where we worked, we had reduced child mortality by 50%. 50% within 2 years. This was the Wisconsin idea writ large, saving children's lives around the world in ways that we might not have imagined here in Wisconsin, but the idea inspired our actions and our efforts. I left for a period of time and then was recruited back by Mark and Alice and the Farleys and Dr. Rich Roberts, who was in Belleville at the time, the original Belleville clinic where we had the Belleville Community Health Improvement Project, the BCHIP. And Dr. Roberts taught me that we actually, by working with the community, we can bring about changes that are actually more important, more meaningful, more profound. We don't need to wait for patients to come to us. We can go to and engage with the community to bring about positive change. And over the years, began to learn that both rural and urban Wisconsin, Belleville and Milwaukee, had health disparities that in some cases were as big as those disparities between the U.S. and other low-resource nations. And that indeed we had health disparities in our own backyard that were deserving of attention and commitment and dedication, that indeed we could bring our efforts from family medicine to improve the lives of everyone in the state and beyond. Dr. Jeff Patterson, dear Dr. Patterson, who writ large his influence on health policy and political negotiated treaties for nuclear disarmament around the world. Dr. Melissa Stiles and her fine example of advocacy through Physicians for Responsibility. They taught me that yes, indeed, the role of the family doctor is in advocacy, in policy, in influencing systems to promote the health and protect the health of people throughout the world. From these lessons, from these courageous leaders, I learned and developed the confidence to go to the World Health Organization. We can break these barriers. We can influence policies. We can influence health. And indeed, launch a new program in family medicine in Ethiopia, a country that had the highest rates of maternal mortality and child mortality. But yes, indeed, family doctors could make a difference there too. We launched the Global Health Institute, the Center for Global Health, which now has more undergraduate students than any certificate program in the university. The last I heard, more than 500 students, field courses around the world, graduate and capstone certificates, many, many graduates leading global health initiatives worldwide, and our faculty engaged across the world. Partnerships for health, not just for human health, but for animal health and the environment, One Health for people and the planet thriving. This is the Wisconsin idea writ large, influencing the health of populations around the world. And then a homecoming back to Milwaukee with Dr. Shersty Knox, one of the first Triumph students, looking at health disparities again in our own backyard in Milwaukee. We created the Training in Urban Medicine and Public Health program, Partnerships for Health, because we know that working together with communities, with organizations, building on the assets of people, organizations, and the interstitial spaces of communities, we can actually make a difference and promote the health based on the assets of community development to promote health equity where the needs are greatest. I look at the people in this room and I think of many people who are not in this room, and I think of that rippling effect of the idea that we can make a difference in the world, and the idea that by mentoring, by reaching out, by encouraging and supporting one another, indeed we can make a difference. And now, although I don't live in Wisconsin, I have to say my heart is still here in Wisconsin. While I'm at the University of California, Irvine, I've taken so many of the lessons that I've learned from Wisconsin to apply to our Department of Family Medicine at Irvine. And you'll see many of the themes and the values and the roots of what I am doing now in California are reflections of what I learned and the strengths I gained from being here in Wisconsin. And so while I have a new family in California, I have a family and roots and appreciation for what I gained here in Wisconsin. And so whether it be in the professional world or in the personal world with my grandbabies who happen to be in California, I thank you for the wonderful training, support, encouragement, and the fabulous Wisconsin idea that ripples through me, but ripples through each and every one of us to influence the people around us, who influence the people around them, and this ripple of tenderness and caring and compassion that really has the power to change the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for contributing to this evening. Celebrations are not an event of one. Celebrations are an event of a community. I would like to ask all of the award winners and Alice and Mark, if you can, to come up so we can have a picture with you in the center. Cindy, come on over here.